Hey guys, Adam aka Atheist Radical here. It's been a while. It's been quite a while since the last thing I've put up. You'll have to excuse me during the course of this video. I'm not in the very let's say happiest of moods right now. I have just finished Final Fantasy 15. Literally, credits have rolled, and I have now got my microphone and I'm sitting down. I'm within 5 minutes of finishing the game. 63 and a half hours was about the rough time. Could have been more. I'll get to that in a minute. I'm going to say up front, for anybody who I guess wants to question certain things about what is coming out of my mouth, the information that I have, the sort of passion that I have. I've been playing Final Fantasy since I was little. The first one I touched was Final Fantasy 4, or it would have been 2 in the States, when it first came out on Super Nintendo. You get the gist. I have played almost every single Final Fantasy game that has ever been released. That includes all the shitty ones. I've enjoyed the most of them. Though the last time I truly enjoyed a Final Fantasy game, at least a major release, I'm talking the numbered releases, I'm talking 1 all the way to now 15. The last one I fully enjoyed was 10, and that's over 15 years ago. It was released in 2001. I just finished 15. Halfway through, I would have told you, you know what? This is a great improvement. A lot of good things that I'm liking in this. It's a little buggy, a little rough around the edges, but there's definitely something there. I am now all the way finished. That opinion does not hold up the way that it did at about the 30-hour mark when I first said that. And here's why. I don't know what has changed in the last, 15-ish years. But when it comes to storytelling, Square Enix has quite frankly completely forgotten how. I don't understand how I can love so many of these games for their stories, and now all of a sudden 12 I can't enjoy, none of the 13s I can enjoy, and 15 now I can't enjoy. I don't count 11 or 14 because, let's be honest, online games, they still have very deep lore-ridden story, but I also didn't play much of them, and again, it's still hit and miss because a lot of it's more reading than cutscenes and actual gameplay, because me and MMORPGs have never gotten along, so I have a hard time justifying those two specific games. But enough about those, I'm just going to go right to 15. So I will start from the very beginning and work my way to the end, which is what has drawn the ire of so much negative emotion from me. When I first got this game, I was extremely skeptical, and I surely should have been. Because, like I said, for 15 years, I have not enjoyed, to the point of a fan favorite, a Final Fantasy game. 10 is the last one that I wholeheartedly enjoyed, and I would recommend to anybody. I like 10 too, but again, it's kind of one of those guilty pleasure games rather than something that I would say everybody should like it. 10 is the last time where I truly had that feeling. So when I first put in 15, I went in with extreme low expectations, because I expected this game to be garbage. And you'll hear this as a common theme throughout this video. The game itself, in terms of its mechanics, in terms of its world, in terms of the main characters, in terms of its gameplay, it is a very good game. But holy fucking shit does this story fall on its ass. So anyway, start her up. So far so good. We park up in, I think it's Lade, or it's spelled Leide. I'm still not getting the pronunciation for half of this stuff in. But it starts off, everything's cool. I actually liked all 4 main characters, which is a big worry that I had. I assumed that 4 main male characters was going to be very, bro-esque. It was going to be very, I guess boring, because honestly, as a guy who watches a shit ton of anime, who's played a lot of Japanese games, I find most male characters to actually be extremely boring, dull, and really not that important, beyond the whole trope of, I'm a badass, or I'm the jokester, or I'm the quiet one, or I'm the brooding motherfucking piece of shit. I find that in Japanese material, women seem to have the most personality. Which is why, you know what, no, I'm not even going to get on to the whole SJW sexist shit. This is not what this video is for, so I'm going to just go back to Final Fantasy. But throughout the beginning of the game, I honestly had nothing really bad to say about it. I mean, the battle system started a little slow for me, obviously because you don't have a lot of abilities. So you're starting with the bare bones. You're starting with the very basics. And it is a little bit slow at first. And granted, the Regalia, when it doesn't have its turbocharged boost, so the speed of the car is a lot slower. You don't have fast travel right away for a lot of places. There definitely is a slow start to the game, but it at least stays, I guess the word I'm looking for is it stays happy enough, or it stays lifeful enough that at least you have enough interest there to keep going. So I played through. Obviously, the Kingsglaive section of the game suddenly whaps you in the face, which, by the way, I did not watch Kingsglaive. And anybody who tells me, well, you should have watched Kingsglaive, you should have had a really good idea how the story is with that movie. Here's the thing, and I'm going to say this, and this is going to be something that's going to be another common theme. I don't give a fuck about how much lore is in Kingsglaive, because that is not the game. I expect that when I play a video game, I don't have to go and read a bunch of outside material. I don't have to watch a fucking 2-hour movie. I shouldn't have to do these things to enjoy and understand the game that I'm playing. I should be able to plug it in, play the game, and through playing the story of this game, I should be able to understand a good chunk of what's going on. But I accepted that. The cutscene where, obviously, you know what, I can't believe I even forgot to say this, but there are obviously tons of spoilers in this. I've probably already put it in the title or the description to really make this obvious, but there are heavy spoilers in this. I'm going through the entire game, so if you have not finished it, or if you were close but you don't want to hear this, this ain't the video for you. You might as well back off now, and as much as I'd love to have you around here and still with me, I don't want to ruin this for you, because maybe, just maybe, you might enjoy this differently from how I will. So the fact that you listen to me saying this, it might make you believe something differently, and I don't want that. I want you to come with the full idea of what actually happens in this game, because you finished it, and now you can hear my opinion on it. This is for people who have finished the game, because you're going to hear things that make no sense to you, and you're going to hear opinions that may just completely be buttfuck crazy. But anyway, obviously the scene where Insomnia, which is a stupid fucking name for a city, by the way. Because, I guess I thought the title was going to be cheeky by the end, where the title for the last mission is A Cure for Insomnia. Ha! Very funny. No, I wasn't laughing. But obviously that scene happens where the Empire attacks it, and Regis is killed, Noctis' father. And fine. There's your big plot to the game. There's your introduction to the bad guys. You don't really get to see the bad guys per se. It's just a bunch of soldiers. But you still have the idea of, okay, Empire's evil. There's a starting point. That's good. That's a good start. So you continue on in the open world. You have a few brush-ups. I'm all over the place. This is how pissed off I am. I can't make a fucking sentence right now. You have a few battles here and there with the Empire. You have a few big-ass monsters you got to deal with. And then you get to the big city in Lestallum, where, by this point, I was half and half. In the early beginning with just the plain open world, I enjoyed it, and I was frolicking in there. I ended up, I thought I would have been miles ahead of the end game level that it would have required, and I was only like 6 or 7 levels higher. I think the level for the last mission was 45, and I ended at 52. So that's I'll get onto that in a second too. I want to kind of format this somehow. As pissed off as I am, I'm going to try to do that. But, so I get to Lestallum, go through those motions, and that's when we get to, the Disc of Kothis, I believe. And that's where you get to the first summon, or I guess god in this, the first of the 6. You get to Titan, and the battle was very uneventful. It's basically a matter of hold X, or not hold X, hold square, or, actually, I guess it would have been X for Xbox. Now that, geez, I accidentally did the right one, even though I played on PS4. That's kind of funny. But that battle, it was boring. There was nothing to it. You figure a giant fucking battle with Titan, you would actually have to do some shit. There was only realistically one summon in this game that you actually have a legitimate battle with. And I'll get to that too. But Titan's finished, and we move on. Go back to the open world. Actually, no, that's not true, because that was the part where you get your regalia stolen, so I had to go through the motions for that. So it suddenly gets very linear for a moment, which I was okay with. As much as, I hated 13 about how linear it was, this was a case where I'm like, you know what, fine. It's a little tiny bit where, we got to do this because we don't have our fast travel anymore. That's fine. It's not going to cut us out of the open world. I'm cool with that. So go through that, you get Rama, and you're back into the open world again, and I did a bunch more stuff, did a lot more hunts, did a lot more side quests. I still have a shit ton to do now that I'm in the quote-unquote New Game Plus, and by New Game Plus, I mean you call Umbra, the dog, and you go back in time. It's very weird how this fucking works out, but man, okay. So, I do whatever side quests and stuff I wanted to do, and I decide, you know what, okay, I've done my fill. I'll go and do a couple more story missions, because I was like level 40, I think 48 or 49. You don't gain a lot of levels by the time you decide to make the trip to Accardo, which is insane to me. How from chapter 9 to chapter 15, I think I went at most 4 levels. In like what, 6, 7 chapters, I went up only 3 or 4 fucking levels? What? So I get to Accardo, spent a bunch of time doing the 10,000 gil Duel Monsters 5 thing so I could get the 500,000 gil piece of stuff, which, obviously worked in my favor so much because I really needed anything that expensive. I maybe spent 60,000 of that by the end game, which was only on high elixirs just in case I got really destroyed in the final battle, which again I will get to. But I went through that, did the arena for a bunch of stuff because I want to get the weapons. As far as I understand, the Magitech generator is completely worthless, which makes even more sense now that I understand that there was not even going to be a use for the fucking regalia after I left the arena. That's another thing. I'm going to say it right now. Because there is no open world, once you go to Accardo, that's it. Open world's done. They don't tell you that. They tell you you won't come back. I assume that means temporarily. It never says in the thing that the open world section of this game is over at this point. That needed to be communicated to me, because if it had been, I wouldn't have gone until I finished everything. Because I should have ended this game with over 80 hours, but because the game didn't communicate this properly to me, I finished with 64. So there's a dumb fault from the game there. Not enough communication, which is a key thing that happens constantly in this game. The lack of communication with this game is ridiculous. But anyway, get on to the Leviathan battle. Was cool in theory, but again, very buggy, a little weird in spots, and mostly uneventful. And then the game decides to try and have its heartfelt moment. Now, I don't pretend and I don't claim to be a professional writer. I'm not. I'm a guy that goes on a blog page and talks about anime, particularly anime boobs. I'm not gonna lie, I'm not exactly the most prolific writer out there. But I'm also smart enough to kind of realize that if you're going to kill off a character, you might want to actually give me a reason to like them beyond, look at how adorable and nice she is. That doesn't work. It may with some people, it doesn't work with me. What the hell was I supposed to feel when Lady Lunafreya passes? When she's killed? What am I supposed to feel? Am I supposed to be upset? Because I'm trying to understand why I'm supposed to be upset by a girl that I basically never saw in person at any point except through childhood memories. For Noctis, it may be a big deal that Lunafreya has passed away, but for me, the player, the viewer of this story, she meant absolutely jack shit to me. Nothing. Not a goddamn thing to me. So when she died, my best expression was, meh. That was my reaction to what they must have thought was an Aerith, or an Aerith, depending on how you want to say it, that level of death. Which, by the way, I didn't care much for either, because Aerith was kind of a dull and stupid piece of shit too. But either way, you kill off what you consider to be a major character, and I don't care. There's a serious problem with your storytelling if I don't care about a major death like that. So at this point, from this point forward, the story that I at least was half and half on, because I didn't understand a lot of it, but I was still intrigued to see where it was going. From Lady Lunafreya's death on, that nosedive begins and it goes to a quicker and more vertical incline. The longer the story went on from this point, the faster the nosedive was and the further down this bottomless pit that the game was going. So we have that. Lady Lunafreya has passed away. She's been killed. There is so much in between all these things that we are getting no explanations of. What the fuck happens to Ricardo after all this? What was the point of this negotiation with this, I can't remember what was her title, but this woman that you had to delegate with. What was the point of that? There was literally no point to it. It didn't seem like there was anything that you got out of it. There has to be some crazy DLC coming out that addresses something. Because right now, what I just saw and what I just played through, all of this made no sense and had no value to it. Nothing that I did from Ricardo forward meant anything. What was the point of that speech? I gained her trust. Well, that really fucking helped because Lunafreya died. Ricardo still got its shit pushed in. The half of the fucking city was totaled from what I saw. And in the end, as I get further down this story, fucking everybody is fucked anyway. So I literally played this game for 50 hours for no reason. 50 hours of work went out the window completely. So we go further. We're on the train. And at this point, that's when I knew that we were definitely going downhill. Because now, think about this for a second. Noctis has lost his father, and he has lost his wife, his one childhood friend that we know of. I don't know in canon how many days has passed between these two things. I assume in my game it's probably somewhere around a couple of months based on how many times I slept. But realistically, in the span of this game's cycle, which to me at most was probably in storyline maybe a few months at best. It certainly couldn't have been a year because it definitely didn't feel like it was that long. In the span of less than a year, Noctis suddenly out of nowhere lost his father, is already in enough shock and regret because he never really got the chance to say a lot of nice things about it. He never got to, give him that kind of attention. He never got to spend time with him. Holy shit, I need to take a drink. My fucking throat's already killing me. God, I'm probably halfway into this video and my throat's already dying. That's a great sign, isn't it? But think about this. Noctis has lost his father. Very sudden. A lot of regret going on. And now literally the only thing he has left is Lunafreya. That's literally the only thing in his mind right now that is keeping him going forward. It's the fact that he'll be able to see his bride-to-be, who I'm not even convinced he's actually that far in love with. Based on how he talks about her, it sounds more like he's just like, he admires her. Like she's a friend. I don't even get the sense that he is like fondly in love with her. So after all that, doesn't it make sense though that Noctis should be a little distraught and a little just out of it? And yet, for the rest of this game, Gladio decides to be the biggest fucking asshole and tells you to grow the fuck up. What did you lose, Gladio? Now, if Iris had passed away, if she had died, you would not be saying the same old shit, now would you? So again, they're putting this whole bullshit about how, Noctis is this broody kid. For fuck's sakes, Cloud was a broody motherfucker. Lightning was a broody fucking bitch. You want to tell me Noctis, who actually lost people, who actually has dealt with a lot of bullshit in the span of months, he is a brooding fuckface? Give me a fucking break, man. So Gladio, for the next hour or so, especially during that mine mission, I can't remember what the title of it was. I think it was the Head of the King or the Hand of the King or something like that. Holy fuck, was that frustrating. Here's a great mechanic, Square. Let's put you in a dungeon, a big-ass map, where after Ignis has lost his fucking eyesight, which, by the way, made him more badass. It made him almost like, fucking, like, elegant, preppy Auron. That was fucking cool. So now I have to play in this giant map, and every 5 seconds that I basically move, I get shouted at because I'm leaving him behind. I'm sorry, Square. I want to actually progress through this game. So thank you for annoying me every 2 seconds because I decided to walk forward. Because your AI in terms of walking across the map is also really fucking stupid at times. So I go through this. I go through this extremely fucking difficult map based on the idea that I have to listen to Gladio fucking chastise me every 5 seconds. And we defeat the Marlborough, get the tomb stuff, which, by the way, I didn't even get all the fucking tombs, which I'm trying to figure out now where the hell a couple of them are, because I'm pretty sure I explored most of the map. And I'm still like, actually, I think I can pull up my file right now. How many missing? I'm still missing 3, apparently. Where the fuck am I missing 3? Man, I got some work to do in the New Game Plus. But, obviously we go through all that. And then it's time to get back on the train. We deal with Shiva, which, by the way, Gentiana is a character, a trope that I am so sick and tired of. The mystical woman that speaks in tongue, in riddles, in religious doctrine for the entire game. It makes no fucking sense. That also doesn't help with the storyline when you're like, I guess the person that holds your hand the most is the one that speaks the most nonsense. I had a great tweet. I don't remember it verbatim, but Noctis calls her a messenger of God, and I called her a spewer of nonsensical bullshit. I'm so sick and tired of those characters. And then the fact that she becomes Shiva, again, it should have been a moment that I was like, oh, that's cool. But not really. Now, I know that during this train ride, obviously, there's the attack and you lose Prompto. I'll get to Ardyn in a minute based on all this stuff. I just want to get to this point at the end where I can actually talk about Ardyn further. But either way, we go through more. You obviously go to rescue Prompto in the Empire's capital. And the game suddenly becomes like a horror action game, which was kind of weird. It was interesting. I didn't actually have a problem with it. I think the problem is I was too over-leveled, so that walking in and facing a bunch of level 30 enemies when I'm like level 49 or level 50 at that point, it didn't exactly put that much of a fear in me. It was just jump scaring. So that wasn't that big a deal. Even losing my power, it was like, this is more of a annoyance than anything else, because now I got to deal with this ring where I basically have to hold square and just basically evade and do damage that way for a little bit. That wasn't all that interesting either, but it was not the worst thing. So you save Prompto, and you get sucked into the crystal because Ardyn has some weird bullshit. During all this, Revis is killed because I guess he had to be executed for failing, I guess, or I don't know what the hell was going on. And again, they try to make it seem like it's a big deal. Now again, this may be a thing where Kingslave might have helped this, but from my perspective as a guy who didn't watch Kingslave, Revis was on my screen for at most 2 minutes. And as far as I was concerned, he was a villain. And you're trying to make his death seem sad to me? Again, I don't have the attachment available to actually feel any sorrow for these deaths. Now, I don't know if Kingslave could have solved this. But again, I come back down to the same thing that I said at the beginning of this, where I don't give a shit. A movie should not have to be something that is required of me when I'm playing a video game. Like, I don't go and watch an Avengers movie assuming that I have to have read the comics to really enjoy it. I watched Guardians of the fucking Galaxy, didn't know a goddamn thing about it, and I came out with one of my favorite movies that I've seen in the last 10 years. So, if If you are telling me that I have to have read up on the material and watched this movie and done all this, it's like I'm going to be really upset when Persona 5 comes out and I had to have watched the Daybreakers anime to really understand what the hell I'm doing. Because that's bullshit. I should be able to plug in a game and get what I'm doing right off the bat. I should be able to like slowly understand what's going on. By the end of this game, I still I don't know if I'll ever have a fucking clue unless I watch a video on YouTube where somebody succinctly gives a whole lore like reading and understanding of everything that's going on, because right now in my brain none of this makes any fucking sense to me. So Rivas has died. That's another death that I don't give a shit about. You go through more of the motions. You save Prompto. Arden puts you in the crystal. There's Bahamut. Oh my god, it's Bahamut. And again, no boss battle for Bahamut. That would have been really fucking cool, but there was a missed opportunity. And then all of a sudden, it's been 10 years. You wake up and it's been 10 years. You have a beard. What the fuck? And they try to call this mission the World of Ruin, as if this is anything close to what Kefka and Final Fantasy VI did. What this game decided to do with this gigantic fucking jump cut. What the fuck did they think we were gonna react to this? Like, what the hell were they thinking with this? Now, I've heard that they are going to try to patch in Chapter 13 better and get a better understanding of what the hell's going on. I don't give a fuck. You should have done this, and you should have realized this the second that you played it, the second that you created this, that this was a pile of nonsensical fucking bullshit of a mess. So it's 10 years, and all of a sudden, everything is destroyed. Again, this could have been a huge fucking moment if instead of I'll even give you the best example of what should have happened. Noctis should have woken up if anything, a month later. As the chaos is really starting to ensue. That the darkness has completely taken over. The daylight is but a moment away from not existing anymore. So you actually see all these places, all these areas that you have spent so much time in, fall into darkness. Because one of the most shocking things, the most horrifying things about the World of Ruin when it came to be in Final Fantasy VI was watching the entire game world that you have spent all this time in crumble, crack, completely disfigure. You watched innocent kids, women, everybody was dying. You just watched so much death, so much destruction. That meant something when the World of Ruin came to be. You missed all that in Final Fantasy 15. You just walk in and Golden Key is a ghost town, and there's monsters everywhere. Which, by the way, what the fuck is it with level 80 monsters in this area like the Demon Walls? What the fuck? The same thing goes for Insomnia when you walk in and there's a fucking level 74 or level 72 enemy there that can one-shot everybody. What the fuck were they doing with the monster spawns in this section of the game? What were they thinking doing this? I don't understand what the hell was going through their heads at this time. Even worse, they make you walk through it all the way up to that intersection where, I think, was it Talcott? Where the kid now, who is a full teenager, where he comes and picks you up in the truck. Which, by the way, again makes no sense, because what the hell's he doing way out there? Why is he out in Golden Key when if he wants to go between Lestalem and Hammerhead, the actual roadway that he should be using is so fucking far north, there is no reason that he should be out there. Now, granted, the outpost is down south, but it makes no sense that they're there, because as far as we're told, the only power left is in Lestalem, and there seems to be a little bit in Hammerhead and Insomnia, which was great too. They tell you that, the only place where there's really power is Lestalem. And yet you go to Hammerhead, there's power. And you go to Insomnia at the Citadel, there's power. Okay, so that makes sense. But they make you do this long walk just to get to this road. And then they try to bestow you, a very summarized story, which basically amount to, world got fucked while you were gone, Noctis. That's it. You don't get to see any flashbacks of what happened. You don't get to see how characters, dealt with some of this. That's another missed opportunity. They could have had side chapters where they say, okay, here's what here's what Gladio, Ignis, and Prompto did while you were gone. Here's what happened to Iris, which, by the way, we don't see anymore for the rest of the game. We don't see Cindy for the rest of the game. We don't see Sid for the rest of the game. We don't hear a goddamn thing from Ricardo. There's so much stuff that is left out of this section of the game that it makes no fucking sense, and it seems like it got rushed out the fucking door. Which, again, considering how long this game's been worked on, there's no fucking reason that this shouldn't have been finished and fucking detailed out more. This should have been fleshed out fucking miles more than this. How the hell did old school SNES games have more fleshed out stories than this? This is completely asinine. That you are just expected to accept that 10 years have passed, everything's fucked, and now you're going to fix it. Better yet, there's nothing in between you waking up and then the final boss. You literally go to Hammerhead, meet the three guys again. They say time to catch up. You don't actually catch up. They reveal that in the end credits, but it sure as shit wasn't that important. So you go. You don't even get to see Cindy. You don't get the regalia, as far as you know, is fucking gone. Never to be seen again. All these people that you have known for this entirety of the game, which, by the way, actually isn't that much now that I think about it. There are not that many characters of importance in this game, which is scary to me now that I think about that. I think there might have been more party members in Final Fantasy VI than there were actual important characters in this game. Holy shit. So you go to Insomnia. And like I said, you deal with the bullshit of there suddenly being, like, they start you out with level 35 enemies. I'm like, okay, cool. I'll run through these soldiers. Level 72 thing that can one-shot you. What the fuck? Okay, run away from that. Level 41. Okay, cool. I can deal with that. You go the other path, which leads to nowhere. Level 46 Yojimbo, which I thought would have been cool, but again, just a random enemy. And then there's a couple of those Naga. I think they were level 42 or something. It's this weird, like, if I had just gone the one path, I could have avoided this one-shotter. But why is it there to begin with? It makes no sense. I don't understand what the hell the spawning was for this. Why would they make it like that? If the mission says it's going to be level 45, why would you put a level 72 in there? That doesn't make any sense. It really doesn't. I don't understand what they were going for with this. But I digress. You get there. And I will admit the Ifrit fight, which was... Oh, sorry, there was the King Behemoth, but that was a fucking pushover. I just casted a Quinn... I never even used an Aga spell. I never used a Fire Aga, a Blizz Aga, or a Thundaga. I never went past Thundara, Fyra, and Blizzara. Never went past it. Maybe it's something that's really only required towards the end with the New Game Plus with all the extra dungeons. That could be possible. Whatever. So I beat the Behemoth King relatively easily. Get to Ifrit. Ifrit was actually a bit of a challenge. Oh, I guess I forgot to mention the Monster Revis fight was actually probably the biggest of bitches out of all the fights in the entire game, because the AI is so stupid in that fight. Because, he has that attack, like, there's also the bullshit attack where he, like, stops you, and you could be point warped on top of something, and he'll still stop you from there. But there's that one attack where you can see it a mile away, like, he has this purple smoke barrier thing forming, and he does this area of effect damage. And the AI always just run right into it, and you're almost required to use a Mega Potion, or at least High Elixir one of them. But we get to Ifrit. Ifrit was actually a fun, challenging fight. Out of all the 6, which, by the way, maybe Kingsglaive revealed it too, but I didn't know that when they said that they had defeated 3 of the 6, I didn't know that that meant Titan, Leviathan, and Shiva, who had already been killed. Did not know that was a thing. Maybe it was referring to Ifrit as well. I don't know. But they act like you're supposed to know all these things. And again, maybe Kingsglaive does that. But again, as I've said a billion times, I don't care. Ifrit was a cool fight. And the fact that I had to use Shiva to finish it actually made it that much cooler. That was really neat. Because Ifrit and Shiva have always been tied together. I still remember from Final Fantasy VI where literally those two were like... They were almost like wife and husband. I don't even know if they actually were or not in terms of the game's lore. But that's how it felt. Like, they were one of the same. Like, they were together. So for that was kind of cool. To have Ifrit, be this really, really interesting battle where I had to be very aware of when I attacked because of the flames surrounding him. And Shiva ends up having to be the one that finishes him off. That was really cool. It also made sense for that random scene at the start of the game where you're on fire. I'm like, what the fuck is going on here? So I figure, all right, I guess this is the end. One more fight. I figure, this is going to be some crazy, like, 3-tiered boss battle, which I guess it kind of was, but not in the way that I was expecting. So you get to Ardyn. And I'm going to take a drink again because my throat's killing me once more. But Ardyn, this game suffers from the same thing that 12 suffered from for me, where I had a pretty vague idea of who the end boss was going to be, but I didn't have a reason to really want to fight him. Ardyn is this really weird case, and I think Vayne from 12 was a lot like that too. Keep in mind I haven't finished 12. I'm positive I was 90% the way through. I was just nearly at the end of the game, and I was doing all the hunts, and I still remember this. I finished all the hunts except for that one that takes you like hours to do, because I'm like, fuck that. But I finished everything else in between, and this must have been like 15 to 20 hours removed from the story, and I had that thought in the back of my mind of like, what the fuck am I doing? What am I fighting? Why am I fighting? Then again, I also chalk that up to the game just having a really terrible story. But I had the kind of same thing with Vayne that I do with Ardyn, where Ardyn to me felt like this weird, sometimes he seemed to be a good guy, and then sometimes he wasn't. Like, it seemed like he was trying to help for his own weird things. We never really got, like, the Emperor ends up just being a fucking shithead fucking monster that you can kill pretty goddamn easily. So that made no fucking sense. At least, Kefka actually killed Gestahl with his own hands. At least that was a moment. This Emperor, you literally he fucking died like a fart in church. There's nothing special. Like, what the fuck? Ardyn is... I don't understand what his motivations are beyond, I'm immortal, and because I cannot die, I'm going to wreck the world, I guess. Like, he just wants to see the world burn now for some apparent reason. Also, why does he have the power to control time? And suddenly, he becomes like Psycho Mantis. He becomes a fucking, I guess, psychic, like, shape-shifting, like, trickster thing. Like, what the fuck is art? It doesn't get explained. How does Ardyn come into contact with powers of time? How does he have the ability to make it seem like he is there when it's actually Prompto who you knock off the fucking train? None of this made sense. Again, if it's explained otherwise, I guess, let me know in the comments, but I don't understand what the hell happened. Why is Ardyn this important? Why does he have this power? Once they say, he basically just says, that's the perks of being immortal, or whatever the hell he says. I'm like, what? Now you're immortal too? What the fuck? You got dealt a nice hand, didn't you? So, in terms of, like, wanting to beat Ardyn, I don't have any reason to, because, again, I understand that the reason was supposed to be, this guy killed Lunafreya. This guy killed your waifu. Problem is, I didn't give a shit about Lunafreya. In fact, the picture I chose to take with me for the final boss battle was a picture of Cindy. I think I did the game right, because there was nothing funnier to me than after the game is over to watch Noctis pick up a picture of Cindy and show it to Lunafreya like, hey, check it out. That's probably the most joy I had at the second half of this game, was watching how that was the final scene of this fucking game. That is hilarious to me. But back to Ardyn, I mean, I don't feel like there was a reason to fight him. I don't feel like he had wronged me that much. He just made the world burn, so it was kind of more the motions of, okay, you're the bad guy, I have to stop you. Like, Sephiroth fucking had something. I don't even like Sephiroth as a villain that much. I think when it came to villains in 7, you have to give it to Shinra a hell of a lot more than Sephiroth. And even then, Jenova probably even has a little more to things than Sephiroth. You take Kefka from 6, who is always the shining example. Kefka is literally a thorn in your side the entire game. Kills people that in actual horrifying ways, is an actual monster, or as far as we see it, Arden just basically releases demons, and the demons are doing most of the damage. Kefka literally does most of it himself. And I'm trying to think of other villains. The problem with Final Fantasy is villains always aren't their strong suit usually. Because a lot of the times the final boss just comes out of the fucking, I guess, blackness, the darkness, just out of fucking nowhere. But I really didn't feel like Arden was a foil to me. It just ended up being like, okay, I guess this is the guy I gotta finish. All right. And the battle wasn't that spectacular. It could have been a really interesting battle because it almost had an idea of a Dark Link kind of battle where you're facing somebody with the same abilities as you. Except the problem is you still have pushover, and I can just use magic that can Quincast 9999 damage, and that solves a lot of the problem. Then you get to the hold circle stage of it where you're flying, and you basically just have the camera buttfuck itself as you just constantly hit them. And I think I used a potion twice just to stay alive. And then you get to the last part of the battle where all these kings are overwatching you, and I'm pretty sure this was supposed to go on longer, but I killed them pretty quick. I felt like there was a lot more to it. And again, that's why I thought there was going to be more tiers to it. But no, that was it. That was it. Final boss battle lasted me 2 minutes at most. And I wasn't even that over leveled. Now, if I had been level like 70 something after doing all the hunts or whatever, I'd understand. But I was what? 7 levels above. And Noctis wasn't even that much of a powerhouse. I kind of had him more set to like defense and magic. And I still killed the final boss with relative ease. Almost like I was Omni slashing him like the final battle with Cloud and Sephiroth. So that was the end. Noctis has to sacrifice himself, which again would have been emotional if I actually had any attachment. But by the time Lunafreya had passed on, I was just more like going through the motions. And that's it. Obviously, after that first bit of credits, they show the camp that you talk with the guys and I guess told them what was going to happen. And even then, it wasn't. I heard people say that they were fucking in tears at the end of this game. And I'm like, after playing this, I'm thinking, either I am just a apathetic, heartless son of a bitch, or fuck, man, like, you must be like, oh, you know what? I'm not going to say that people are soft, but I from my standpoint, I just don't see, unless you had the hots for Lunafreya, which by the way, I didn't even think she was that attractive. I wouldn't even put her in the top 3 of all the girls in the game. But after she dies, like, there's no importance to me. And I really do feel like that was the reason to get you to hate Arden. And that didn't work. Somebody asked me, what would have to be done for you to really be affected by this game? And I said, well, quite frankly, you have to kill one of 2 people. You have to kill Cindy, which I know they're not going to do because she's a actual mechanic in the game. I don't even mean by her job title. I mean, she literally is the person you go to for your upgrades and stuff for the regalia. And as far as we see, there's nobody that can replace her. I mean, I guess they could do it to Cid, but I don't see how that would work anyway. The only other person they could have killed that could have possibly elicited any sort of reaction in me would have been Iris. And that's only because, like, it would have been just out of nowhere because it seemed like she didn't have enough importance to the plot. The thing is, anybody that had an actual name in this story, anybody that was an actual important main character, I don't see the importance of them dying. Like, there just isn't a single character in this game that you can really get attached to. As far as I'm concerned, there just isn't that character that you can associate with. As I said it to a lot of people, when it comes to the game, in terms of the characters, there isn't a single character that I'm really attached to other than the fact that I'm just extremely attracted to Cindy. But in terms of characters, like, honestly, the only upside is really when the 4 main characters are together. They gel very well, but on their own, they're not exactly, like, great characters. Together, they are one great group of characters, but on their own, they aren't very good solo entities. So, in order for these villains to be hated, they would have to do something on a much grander scale. And again, if this had been drawn out further, if this had been a case of over the course of chapters 9 to 15, Ardyn slowly but surely destroyed more and more and more and more. And you actually got to see it. Even if you were there and you got to witness it. Because again, as far as I'm concerned, the only destruction that you see is Accardo, and that was caused by Leviathan and within all the chaos. Technically, you are part of the reason that it got that this beautiful city got destroyed. Instead, you wake up 10 years later where everything's gone to shit, and you just have to be like, oh, okay. Like, that could have been something so big, and I basically walked into the world of Ruin going, oh, shit, okay, what? Okay. I was confused more than anything else. So, it's over. I keep thinking, there's gotta be something. There's gotta be something. And post-credits, nothing. It really does tell me that this game was not meant to be an actual Final Fantasy release. Like, it was meant to be a Final Fantasy Versus 13. That's what it was supposed to be. Or Final Fantasy 13 Versus. I don't remember what the fuck it was supposed to be called. This was clearly not built to be a standalone title. It's very obvious from that. The story was not written to be that. And I'm trying to understand how this would have been related to the 13 universe at all. There's no mention of the fal'Cie, the l'Cie. There's no mention of any, like, I don't see any connection to what's going on. There might be a connection that I just don't know because I haven't, like, the only 13 game I finished was 13-2. I never even played Lightning Returns. I don't even think I was halfway into 13. So I'm missing a lot of lore from there. So maybe there is a connection, in which case, cool, I guess. But for a game to be called Final Fantasy 15, to be considered a standalone, this may just have been one of the weakest stories I have ever seen. And from a Final Fantasy game, that is unacceptable. That is absolutely unacceptable. For me to leave a Final Fantasy game, actually finish it, and say that this is one of the most uneventful and uninspired stories I have ever played through. I have played through some shitty fucking games. And this is one where, like, I'm not saying the game is shit. I'm going to go and play the New Game Plus after this is done. I'm still going to enjoy it. Don't get me wrong. But in terms of a story, this is one of the worst told stories I've experienced in gaming in a long time. Because I've left this game, its main story, without a single attachment to a character. I've left with an attraction to a character, but not an attachment. I've left with no understanding of what I just played through. I could play through this 5 times, and I'm convinced I'm still not gonna understand what the hell happens. I'm left with moments that I know were supposed to be important and were not. I've been left with one of the most anticlimactic and one of the most pointless and boring endings that I have ever played in a game. I'm trying to think, what could have been on the same level of this ending? You know what? I got a great example right now. The only difference between the example I'm about to give in Final Fantasy 15 is that it doesn't have the major plot point that this example has. So, if you have ever played Red Dead Redemption, you'll know exactly what I'm talking about. Spoilers for those who haven't played it, but it's an older game, so too bad. You play as John Marston throughout the entirety of Red Dead Redemption. And in what you thought was going to be the ending, you're killed in cold blood in the most horrifying fashion. And then you're fast-tracked to his son who grows up, apparently who had never held a gun in his life as far as we understand, or was never going to hold a gun in his life. Now all of a sudden is a master sharpshooter of the same level of John Marston, who had been shooting guns since he was a fucking tiny baby, I think. And through a matter of almost like fetch quests, you find your way to the guy who killed your father, and you finish him off in a quick minigame. There isn't even like an actual like story mission towards it. It's literally just going through the motions and you finish it. The last, I guess, chapter of Final Fantasy 15 is a lot like that, where it just feels like you're pushed into the final battle and it ends just out of nowhere. Because as far as I see it, it makes no sense to me that I went through chapters 1 to 8 in terms of the open world, and the open world had a lot to do with why it took so long, for about 55 hours. And in less than 10 hours, I finished chapters 9 to 15, which essentially is the second half of the game. I'm going back, and I'm done talking about the actual story, by the way. Now I'm just going to bitch about the way that this game was built. I have played and finished Final Fantasies 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 10-2, and 13-2. I can count games like Dirge of Cerberus. I can count spin-offs like Tactics and Tactics Advance. There are little things here and there that I can talk about, but to talk about the major numbered series, how many games can you think of where that much of the story was flown by in the span of 10 hours? There is always a major dungeon that takes a while to go through. There is always several boss battles. There wasn't even a recurring boss in this game. That's like JRPG cliche number 1, is that recurring boss. There was no Seymour to this. There was no Ultros. There was no Cypher. There was no Sin. None of that. The core things that we come to know from a JRPG, especially a JRPG like Final Fantasy, they're all gone. They don't exist. A Final Fantasy game for first-timers and fans alike, I can understand the first-timers, but for fans, you basically cut out all the traditional stuff that was a Final Fantasy game. Like, the final dungeon for 6 was this existential lengthy thing. Final Fantasy X, Sin was a fucking dungeon. Final Fantasy IV, you were on the fucking moon. Final Fantasy 15, you walk into Insomnium, within half an hour you're in the final boss battle. The entire second half of the game is limited to one dungeon and a shitload of cutscenes. What the fuck? That's not a Final Fantasy game. And if it is, holy crap, what have I missed? Did I fall asleep? Did somebody bash me over the head and I've forgotten what Final Fantasy actually was? What did I miss? I'm going to end by talking about why I'm now in the state of mind where I'm not even 100% sure that I will even bat an eyelash at Final Fantasy 16, whether it's online or not. Like I said, it's been 15 years since I've truly loved a Final Fantasy game in terms of a major number release. I've played 14. I finally did that because I got a free trial. I know I said on my blog page I would never play it so long as it wasn't free to play. Technically, I found a loophole. I got a 30-day free trial. And even then I liked it, but it wasn't spectacular. Granted, I didn't have people to play with, so that was a big part of why. But 11 I couldn't get into, 14 I could, like, both of them are online, so it's hard to say. 12 I completely lost focus on. 13 had just the worst cast of characters I think I've ever seen in a video game. Especially the worst heroine. Not even just hero. Probably, you know what, even hero. The worst, like, one of the worst main characters I've ever had in a video game. So for 15 years, I put so much fucking blind trust into Square Enix because as a kid who grew up with the Super Nintendo Final Fantasy, as a kid who grew up with the PlayStation Final Fantasy, as a kid who grew up with I guess, a couple of PlayStation 2 Final Fantasies. As a guy who grew up in the greatest age of JRPGs, the PlayStation 2 era, as far as I'm concerned. You may disagree, that's how I feel. Because you had Dragon Quest VIII, you had Final Fantasy X and X-2, no matter what people say about X-2. You had Persona 3 and 4, you had the Shadow Heart series, you had Rogue Galaxy, you had Xenosaga, the Ys series, Mana Khemia, you had fucking, there's one more I'm thinking. There's probably a couple I'm missing. I know Star Ocean was one. Suikoden, there we go. There were so many good JRPGs on that game, on that console. I got a 360 instead of a PS3. Not that it mattered, because there wasn't anything good on that console. Tales of Vesperia was alright. Star Ocean Last Hope was okay. But there wasn't a phenomenal JRPG like there was in the PlayStation 2. And I don't think it's nostalgia. I don't think it's being younger. I think it literally is. Just games are getting worse in terms of their storytelling. One of the best games, and I did an article on this not even a month ago, one of the best games that I have played in terms of story is Gone Home, a 2-hour point and click. It's a walking simulator and it has one of the best stories. I don't know what has happened in the last 15 years, but apparently for a major game, a story is fucking impossible. You can't write them anymore. What the fuck has happened in 15 years of storytelling? What has changed? I don't understand. What is so hard about writing a cohesive story where there are interesting characters, where there is fun, where there is drama, where there is fantasy, where there is intense moments? That doesn't exist from what I understand. There are so many few major titles that I can think of where that happens. And as far as I know, the only ones I can think of are Mass Effect. Those are the only ones that I can comfortably tell you have amazing stories for AAA titles. And even then, people argue that because they don't like the Mass Effect 3 ending. This new console generation is driving me insane because the art of storytelling no longer exists. It's now become, here's how pretty our game looks. Here's how open world our game is. I gave Final Fantasy 15 the benefit of the doubt because if there's any game that could make open world good, it has to be Final Fantasy. Final Fantasy can figure out how to make that work. And you know what? The open world for Final Fantasy 15 ain't even that bad. It's pretty good. I actually enjoy the open world concept of this game. The problem is for most open world games, I don't like the open world part of it, and the story is usually decent. In this game, the open world's really good, the story is garbage. Drink number 3. Holy crap, how the hell am I going to last through this? I got to finish this up before I completely lose my drink because I don't want to stop recording. This console generation has proved to me that storytelling no longer exists. That it's about the drama. It's about the storytelling now in this era is who can we kill that will get a reaction? That's what storytelling is now, as far as I see it. Who can we kill that'll elicit a reaction? Instead of getting us interested and involved in this world, engaged in this world, you now figure you have to pull the feelings out of us. You have to kill someone to make something happen. Like, what do you think happens with Call of Duty now? Where ever since No Russian, actually ever since the nuke, they keep trying to shock people with just more death. What is this fascination that we have with death when it comes to, I guess, storytelling? Japan is just horrible for this, by the way. I don't know what's up with Japan, if they just love being depressed and horrified and mourning all the time, but this is ridiculous. And even then, like, these deaths were so poorly written in this game that I don't understand what I was supposed to feel in that. Because now, if they'd gotten Lunafreya, here's what I would have done. Lady Lunafreya, somehow, by the grace of the gods or whatever the fuck, she somehow survives Accardo. So instead of this imprisonment bullshit, this train bullshit, Because the train was kind of cool. The train battles were kind of cool, I guess. But again, it just seemed like a pointless filler. So instead, you go back to, I guess, Lestallum. And you now have Luna in your care. And you start rekindling that fire that you once had when they were childhood friends. And you make that worth something. During this time, you go to work on the fourth god. I guess it would be Shiva if you want to go with that route. And you work on that. It just seems so haphazard that just, oh yeah, Shiva's dead. And really it's Gentiana. This entire second half felt so rushed. Like, I really do want to assume that this game was actually meant to be a quick, like, 20-hour thing. And because they now decided to make it into a big game, they just put the open world elements in, added a few pinches here and there, and then that was it. But you have a number of missions go through. And some more big monsters. You start having the demons start to show up. Because now, like you said, three gods are now gone, essentially. So now shit's starting to go down. More and more demons are appearing. More dangerous demons are appearing. And during your search for the fourth god, Luna is officially captured by the Empire. So that's when you go to the capital. And during the skirmish, because fuck Prompto, like I actually thought that I was going to face a monster version of Prompto and we were going to kill him that way and we were going to be down to 3 party members. I thought by the end of this game, it was just going to be Noctis, and I actually would have been more intrigued if the story had gone, like, based on how it went, I would have been more interested if slowly but surely everybody dies and by the end Noctis is the last one standing and finishes the job. Instead, we have what we have. But instead of Prompto, you go forth and try to rescue Luna at the Empire. The Desolate Empire made no sense as well. It felt like that there should have been so much more to that. And yet, the Empire, the entire city is lifeless. And just, it felt so stupid. But you go there, you do some reconnaissance work, you sneak around the city trying to avoid Imperial soldiers that are rounding out, and you learn where she's being kept, or at least you learn a secret way into the main building where she probably is being kept. And when you're almost there, Ardyn is waiting for you, along with the Emperor, who is not a monster at this point. By the way, I'm bullshitting all this. So if this ends up sounding better, realize that I'm doing this off the top of my head rather than what Square had with how much time they spent with this. I don't know if it's going to be any different. You might think otherwise, but whatever. So the 3 of them are standing there. And they say, you want the Oracle? Come and get her. And you fight Ardyn. And that's when you realize that he's immortal. That nothing you do works. So Ardyn laughs, takes her away, and you go further into this dungeon. You fight probably some giant shit on the way there. I don't know, it seemed like a missed opportunity to actually have like some giant Magitech armor. Like old school Final Fantasy VI Magitech armor. That would have been cool. But that wasn't a thing either. The Magitech was such a fucking drop thing. Like that could have been so much more fleshed out. But you get there once again, and you constantly are destroyed. Like you've probably destroyed a bunch of things along the way that the Empire needed. Like maybe you've cut off the power source of their Magitech army, so now they can no longer replicate them or whatever the fuck. So the Emperor's freaking the fuck out, and he's bashing the shit out of Ardyn. So at this point, Ardyn says, you know, well, fuck you then, and kills him. He probably acts like, oh, I was going to do this anyway, but seems like now's a better time than any. And Rivas has been there the whole time still as well. And that's when he does his face turn, his good guy turn, and starts to fight. And by the time you come back, you witness the end of that battle where Ardyn comes up victorious. Because again, immortal, winning. And he kills Rivas right there in front of Luna. And by this point, Ardyn has just about had enough of your shit. He's gone full maniacal. Full, I'm going to have the world burn. And to do this, I'm going to take away the one shot you have left. And right then and there, just stabs her right in the chest like he does in Ricardo. At that point, you've actually spent some time with Luna as well because of this break from Ricardo that should have probably happened. So now the deaths mean more because now Rivas redeemed himself and he's dead. The Emperor death came out of nowhere. And now, in the span of this short amount of time, you've watched the Emperor suddenly murdered, you watch Rivas lose and die in a blaze of glory trying to save his sister, and now even through all that, you still couldn't save Luna, and now she's dead. That awakens something. The crystal comes into play. Maybe you get sucked in then and Bahamut shows up, you do that. And then you work towards getting to Insomnia. And that is when you get to the final. And it should be more drawn out than, here's a small map, run through a couple monsters, boom, here's a behemoth, boom, here's Ifrit, and boom, here's your final boss. They could have drawn this out so much more, and they didn't. And even then, I feel like that's already an amazing improvement from what this second half was. There are so many characters that never really got their time either. Core just suddenly disappears. Aranea just... Suddenly she's like, oh yeah, I'm a good guy. I'm just doing search and rescue now. And that's it. That's it. She's gone. You get Biggs and Wedge on your trip, and that's it. She's completely devoid of the rest of the story. Doesn't show up again. Doesn't have any pertinence to it. She doesn't pay for betraying the Empire. I was sure she was going to die at some point. If there was any character that I thought was going to die and probably could have annoyed me a little bit, it was Aranea. And nothing happens to her either. So she is completely left out. Sid and Cindy are completely left out. Talcott just suddenly becomes this teenage guy that drives you in a truck for a moment. That doesn't happen. Iris literally does not show up in the rest of the game. Once you leave Lestalm, you have no reason of ever seeing her again. I mean, granted, she's there at the outpost, but she's like, here, plant some carrots. That was her final role in the game, was here's some seeds, go plant some carrots in the field, which again had no point to it. Oh my god. The second half of this game was such a fucking mess. I'm trying to think, who else could have... I don't think there was anybody else that really had any pertinence to the story. Other than the fact of what the hell, like I said earlier in this video, what was the point of those negotiations in Ricardo? Because as far as we see it, they meant nothing. To see how fast this game ended raises so many questions of what the hell happened during the production of this game. And honestly, if there is anything in this game that makes the most not sense to me, it's Ricardo. Where you do those negotiations, like... It makes me wonder what the hell would have happened if I'd literally just been a shithead and said, fuck you the entire time to her. Would that have changed anything? It doesn't seem like it would have. Like, what did I gain? She gave Luna up to the Imperials anyway. So she didn't protect her. I still held up my end of the bargain and the other three protected the citizens, but I got nothing in return for it. In fact, Luna died. If I had an attachment to Luna, holy fuck, I would have been pissed off. But not even at Arden, I would have been pissed off at the writers because they wrote such a fucking stupid twist. I don't know if I got much else to say at this point, honestly, because, I mean, what else can I say beyond that this was just a giant clusterfuck in the second half of the story? If I had done this video at the 50-hour mark, I would have told you, man, like, I'm not 100% sure where this is going, but you know what? I'm loving this game. This is such an improvement from the last 15 years of bullshit that I have put up with in Final Fantasy. And now I leave with you 13 hours later from that point to say, great. Final Fantasy is now in the same place that I view a series like Metal Gear Solid now that Kojima is gone from it, that I view Mega Man because it will never happen again, that I view Breath of Fire because it's never going to happen. I look at Final Fantasy now the same way that I look at EA Sports, NHL, Madden, and NBA Live and all this shit. It's just another game that's going to come out to collect more money off the fan base. Because as far as I'm concerned, this game has told me that there is never, And I will be the first to apologize to Square, to apologize to every Final Fantasy fan out there. I will apologize to everyone and admit that I was wrong. But what this game has shown me is that there will never, ever be a good Final Fantasy game again. I am convinced of this now, because Square has forgotten how to do it. Square has forgotten how to make a JRPG. They did Bravely Default and were shocked that it sold well, when the fact of the matter is, Bravely Default is the kind of game that got them famous to begin with. Final Fantasy was their last hurrah initially when the original Final Fantasy came out. And they have completely forgotten how that game is what got them famous, what got them to where they are. The best games that Square Enix releases now are not even JRPGs. They're fucking Hitman, Deus Ex, those games. That is what Square has to offer now. It's not Final Fantasy. As far as I'm concerned, it's not going to be Kingdom Hearts because that game may never show up. It's not Dragon Quest because they put them on handhelds where I don't give a shit. When it comes to console JRPGs, they're done. Square has clearly shown either a pure dislike for the genre or a pure fucking incompetence to it. They've forgotten, or either they have outright denied the existence of what they used to know how to make a game. Because they can't tell a story anymore, they can't write interesting characters anymore. They are good for one thing only when it comes to their games, and that is pretty fucking cutscenes. That's it. That's all Square is capable of now. I may be wrong. You may think otherwise. You may have actually liked this game. You may think it's one of your favorite Final Fantasies out there. And congrats to you. I'm glad that you found something to like about it. But for me, someone who has been playing this for, I guess, how old would have I been when I played 4? I must have been 7 or 8, and I'm 28 now. So I am a 20-year veteran, essentially, to Final Fantasy. And I am so disgusted by what I have seen in the last 15 years of releases from this series. I came in and I wrote the article on my page. And if you haven't checked it out at csradical.com, you'll find it. It's relatively easy to find if you just look it up. I said that 15 was going to make or break this franchise for me. And as far as I'm concerned, up until Chapter 8, I was back, baby. I was so far back in. I was ready to go, okay, can't wait for fucking 16 because it seems like they're getting their shit back together. And now I'm leaving with the idea that unless they are going back to old school ATB, unless they're going back to what it used to be by 10, what it used to be in 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, and 9. There are certain degrees on how I liked each of those, but at least those games were fucking good. I don't think 7 is the greatest game, but damn is it still a good game. I don't like 8 that much because of its GF system, which I think is one of the dumbest systems Final Fantasy's ever had, but it was still a decent playing game. Hell, 10-2 was Charlie's Angels, the Final Fantasy game, and I love that game. But 15, a game that should have been so fucking good, and I'm leaving so pissed off by it. It shouldn't have been like that. I should not have felt like this leaving this game, especially when 15 hours ago, I was so fucking happy about it. I was so excited, because I thought, finally, it's back. And now I'm leaving going, you know what? Square at least can still make a decent playing game, but goddamn have they forgotten the most important part about Final Fantasy, which is its fucking story. Because the story in this game is one of the worst stories I have ever played through. It is full of nonsensical bullshit. Nothing makes sense. The characters are all completely uninteresting. There is no one for me to attach to. And as far as I'm concerned, the fact that I took great joy in selecting the final picture to take with me in this game, to be the picture of Cindy, the first picture I ever saved. Because I thought, hey, that would be really funny in an act of defiance to this game to take a picture of a girl that I'm not even supposed to care about in this game because she's a fucking mechanic. I was supposed to care about Luna Freya, the one that my character was supposed to be married to, Instead, I'm more interested in a fucking mechanic with a southern accent that I'm sure they probably thought, oh, she's just going to be the cute girl that people are like, oh, that's kind of nice. No, she was fucking one of my, you know what, I think she is my favorite character in this game because at least she had some fucking personality to her and at least she tried to be interesting. Because this story doesn't do that. On their own, these 4 characters are not that interesting. Lunafreya is not interesting. Gentiana is nonsensical bullshit. Arden is one of the worst villains I have ever fucking played in a game. There is nothing to this game that's interesting. And as far as I'm concerned, it is garbage. The game, at best, taking everything into account, as painful as it is for me to say, it's a 5 out of 10 at best. As a game, probably a 7 or an 8 at most. But when you take in the story, the characters, and the fact that it is just so uninteresting and so unrewarding by the end, it is a fucking 5. It's still no 13. I still like this better than 13. But god fucking damn was this game such a letdown. So with that being said, let me know what you think in the comments below. But for now, I'm done. Peace. This is fucking bullshit. I can't believe I just wasted 65 hours to fucking play and this is the ending I got.